LegacyMaker, the all sports network, presents a SIRTOBA media production where the struggle is real to be awesome.
5, 4, 3, 2.
The wait is over.
Hello everyone, we are syndicated with another installment of the In or Out Sports Debate, Volume 3, best of episodes 11 through 15, with myself, Drew Willingham, along with special guests, Robb Johnson, Tyrone Montgomery Jr., Korrey Mann, and the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony. Enjoy.
Final round.
Having a star big man is key to winning championships in today's NBA. Robb, what do you feel about this one?
I'm out.
Robb is out.
Get the f*** out of here!
And Drew, honestly, to be serious on this one, there's not really much to expound on. All you need to know is that the last true big man to really win was Tim Duncan 04-05 and Shaq back in the three-peat days. So basically, what it is that we have a situation right now where you have big guys like Kevin Durant. He's not a big guy, but you have more of hybrid big men. So if you have a hybrid big man that can do a lot of things, yes, you can win a championship with him, but not a true big man. Hybrid big men, yes.
With this topic, Robb, having a star big man is key to winning championships. I will have to agree with you. I'm out of here.
Get the f*** out of here!
In all seriousness, like Robb said, the game has changed so much. You've got guys playing several different positions. It really started back in 1979 when Magic Johnson came to the NBA, and he was a point guard, but he could play in multiple different positions. He was able to play center in that first championship when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar got hurt and went down with that broken ankle in that first championship. He was able to move to center in the last game and win that last game to win the championship for them. That wasn't the first time I'm sure it was ever done, but that's the first real notable time that it was done with a big game on the line. And as time has evolved over the past 40 plus years since then, we've seen a lot more of that. LeBron James has played different positions. You've got several different guys like Shaq and Yao Ming and the guys like the special 7-foot freaks that are out there playing center. They're not as well known nowadays besides Joel Embiid and stuff like that. But nowadays, even he can play the power forward and stuff like that. He could be more versatile there too. So I'm not with the whole having a big guy is key to winning championships. With all that said,
Round 3.
This one's a very interesting one, Todd, because when you really look back on it and you really think about it, this one does kind of make sense. The Golden State Warriors are poised to win it all this year, despite the decline in Steph Curry's production this postseason. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, Drew, that's a loaded question. That's the works right there. Yeah, I have to say I'm in. I look at this Warriors team. They've been through a lot. Klay Thompson was hurt, missed a lot of the season. Draymond Green, he missed a lot of games towards the end of the season as well. James Wiseman, a first-round draft pick. We still don't know who he is and what he can possibly do to help this team. Steph Curry, he missed the end of the season as well, and it was doubt that he would even play in the first round, but they brought him off the bench. He came back just in time, and the Warriors look like the Warriors again. But even better, it looks like this window was about to close, but it may have expanded, just opened up just a little bit longer. And I think they're poised to win it all this year. They're up 3-0 against the Dallas Mavericks. Nobody wants to play Luka, but they ran into Luka, and they haven't been able to contain Luka, but they've been able to contain the Mavericks, and that's been helping them to succeed. And they're 1 away from the finals, and I think that will happen tonight in Dallas. But I look at this Warriors team, Andrew Wiggins, an all-star starter. He's been huge for them. You know, a lot of the time he's guarding the best player on the other team, but he's still giving them 20 points on a nightly basis. Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole is going to get paid in full this summer.
Yes.
He is going to get the bag, Drew. So I mean, this Warriors team, they're deep. You know, despite the injuries that they've had, despite the issues, I was a little concerned about them when they were playing against the Grizzlies, but they've made it out alive. They made it to the next round, and now they're 1 win away from the finals. So I like their chances to win it all. And I look at this Eastern Conference. Miami's banged up, Boston's banged up, and they're both two inconsistent teams. And I think the Warriors will just take advantage of that, and I think they'll be champions this year.
You bring up some really good points, and I do agree with this. I'm in on this. The biggest reason that's the biggest stat that really affects Curry this year in this postseason is he's below 82% in free throw percentage. He's usually a pretty good free throw shooter. And this season, if you look back on it 3 months ago, like even up to 3 months ago, Curry was in a funk up until that point. He really turned it on during that point and then got to where he is now, to where he's semi-productive. But even throughout the playoffs, that free throw percentage is just atrocious when you look back on his career. The resurgence of Klay Thompson, even though he had the injury bug, like you said, the resurgence of him, he has stepped it up in this playoffs, which has really helped with Jordan Poole and Draymond Green. If it wasn't for them, it's their play that has really propelled this team to be 3-0 against the Mavericks at this point. And the Mavericks were laying it on thick against Suns last round. You know, that 40-point loss. Yeah, that 40-point win. Oh my God. That's got to be the one. I know you saw that video that I put in the chat with CP3. Yeah. That one was, I died laughing. I watched that at least 6 or 7 times in a row, a little 2-minute clip. That thing was great. I love that little short on there. But like you said, the arrival of Jordan Poole, he is going to get paid. Like you said, this is the arrival of him, and he's setting the tone for this Warriors team for years to come, because in a league where everybody's getting paid, where we're just talking about Westbrook with the $47 million contract, and LeBron with 44, and AD's goes up to 43 by the third year that's going to be ending here in a few years. All of these guys are going to be getting paid. So especially Curry, do you pay him a lot of money here when his contract goes out down the line, and if for somebody whose numbers are going to be possibly on the decline?
Steph
or
Curry?
Do you keep him around for the leadership?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
I think you keep him around for the leadership, just because this team wouldn't be where it's at. Because when you look back on when Steph Curry came into the league, the Warriors were at the bottom of the food chain, okay? And with him and Klay Thompson and the building of this team with the big three with Draymond Green and now with the other pieces they got, I feel like it's him that sets that chemistry within the team. You can't let Steph go. I'd pay him $50 million around stick around for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and the thing is, Drew, I don't think Steph Curry is even going to demand that kind of money. I think he sees the big picture, and I think he's looking at the same thing we're looking at. He's only getting older, and this team needs him. Rather he's productive on the court, he's still going to be a productive player off the court, in the locker room, on that bench. And I look at this team like this. This is a family. This is a brotherhood. This is what every NBA team wants, a good culture. And Draymond Green, he's kind of been declining a little bit, injuries and stuff like that. His shooting has been off, but he's still around. And Klay Thompson has been hit with the injury bug. He's still around. And I can see this team with their core, their big three, and Klay, Steph, and Curry, Steph Curry, and Draymond, rather. I can see all of them joining this coaching staff. So, yeah, I don't think they're letting Steph Curry walk.
And Steve Kerr's been a big part of that too, bringing the leadership that he had, with those championships that he won back in the day too, is he learned a lot with leadership. He had the best coaching around him for those championships too. There's no reason why he shouldn't have the rings that he has.
Round 3.
Purchasing land in Dumfries, Virginia was a great move to build a new stadium economically for the Washington Commanders. How do you feel about this, Korrey? Are you in or out?
as much as I cannot stand the Commanders, I am in. I love the fact that they're going to get away from the nation's capital. Get away from it. Have your own domain. Have your own little small town. It costs more money for them to be in the District of Columbia too, that close to federal government and whatnot, and they have to follow all these federal guidelines, etc. It's a lot of steps for them to be where they are right now. So if they take their ball and move on down to Dumfries and go with the plan that is currently on the table, we're talking about generations of billions of dollars for the Washington Commanders. It is a fantastic move to me, and I think more teams should look at doing that when they are looking to build or renovate their spaces. Dude, get everything around me. Build me up economically. If it builds up economically, then it can only help whatever town, city, etc. that they go to. So I think it's a great, great, great move.
You're most certainly right. And, I've got to say that I'm in on this too. Did you know that in Dumfries is the first major hotspot in Virginia for legalized gambling? This is a huge move for the Commanders because as the NFL and other sports are getting bigger with DraftKings and FanDuel and stuff like that, and how the sports gambling has become more popular over the past half decade as legalized gambling, I think this is a huge move for the Commanders. I am on the opposite side of Korrey. I am a fan of the team. I will just go ahead and raise my hand now and say I'm guilty as charged. Look at the license plate of the Hulk Hogan license plate, Hulk Hogan, a lunchbox behind me that's covering the old mascot. So yes, that's my old license plate. I am grandfathered in, along with the half sleeve tattoo I have going down my left arm is dedicated to him as well. I am in there for life, baby. So yes, I'm a fan, but back on task. Purchasing land in Dumfries. Dumfries peaked. They peaked as far as size and importance back in 1763, Korrey. In 1763 is a long time. So this move is going to help elevate this team economically. This is big for that town in Dumfries. It may take a few years for us to see a change within this, but I feel like this is a huge, huge move for not just this team, but for the NFL economically.
Exactly. And it's going to start setting a trend for other teams that may be looking to move the location of their, stadium, dome, etc., and do a similar plot if they carry it out successfully. And that's the big thing. Then it's going to force the NFL's hand a little bit here too. Like you were saying with the legalized gambling, I don't know why sports teams are starting to, continually pushing back on it. This is going to be the new era of life going forward. So how do you, as the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, MLB, etc., get involved with that so you can get your hand fully in that pot and get a percentage of that so you can allow gambling? Now, the people that's participating in it, no, you shouldn't gamble. Cool, I got that. But everybody else, don't make it bad for everybody else, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? If Dan Snyder survives the debacle that he's been going through over the past couple of years with the stuff he's been going through and gets to see not only the evolution of the stadium built, his best buddy Jerry Jones over in Dallas, he needs to upstage him with this stadium and make it bigger and better than Jerry World. Small town of Dumfries, but best stadium in the United States. I'm ready for it. Fingers crossed, and I hope LegacyMaker is there on the first game of that season for that stadium.
That would be awesome.
That would definitely be awesome. With that said, let's go ahead and roll this into round 3.
Round 3.
As a result of the most recent actions, MJF's persona is one of the best examples of an old school heel, but his vulgarity cripples his growth. And before we get to that, let's check out a 90-second highlight clip brought to you by yours truly.
This is Max Friedman talking. Every time I come out here, I am not expected to hit home runs. I am expected to hit grand slams, and I do that shit on a weekly basis. because the boys in the back all want my spot. Well, guess what? You want my spot, you can have it, because I don't want to be here anymore. How could I possibly be the best? Well, newsflash, I am the best. I'm the best in the world, because I'm the only guy who makes you feel. And unlike all those boys, I don't got to do a bunch of bullshit to get you there. Make sure he hoards all that money so he can give it to all the new ex-WWE guys he keeps bringing in. That can't lace my goddamn boots. Hey, boss, would you treat me better if I was an ex-WWE guy? I don't want to wait till 2024, but you don't listen to me, so allow me to make it a little bit easier for you. Tony, I want you to fire me. Tony, don't count me down, you piece of shit! Shut your mouth! Look at me, Tony. Look at me. I want you to fire me. You fucking mark! Fire me! Fire me!
You know, with that said, again, MJF's persona is one of the best examples of an old school heel, but his vulgarity cripples his growth. Greg, how do you feel about that? Are you in or are you out?
I am absolutely in. You know, people that know me best know that, you know, this kind of stuff is what drives me crazy. We run a completely family-friendly show. You know, no vulgarity, no cussing, no anything, no extreme violence. So absolutely, you know, professional wrestling has always been about getting heat, but not getting heat that makes someone never want to buy a ticket again. It's really easy to get heat when you tell someone, hey, fat bitch, sit down. That's easy. They're going to cuss you when you do that, of course. But it's when you can just look at someone on the front row and get them that mad and get that reaction out of them. That's when you're a true heel. I've said it for a while now. I like 80% of what MJF does. And the 20% I don't like has to do with the vulgarity and the cussing and just the overall arc that he's followed.
I'm like the needle moves. The fan part of me says that I'm out. However, the professional journalistic part of me says that I'm in. Guys, let's get real here. Even though I got access to a clip of what wasn't edited, we didn't see all of that on live TV. So part of this is a work from AEW, and the fact that we hear all this news about there was a source that came out earlier today actually that said that there were top execs of TNT that were pushing for MJF to be removed from the AEW roster and from all vignettes and from all promotional parts of video and stuff like that for the actual show for Rampage and for Dynamite. Because of a result of that, I feel like this is all a work to get him bigger, because now you got CM Punk's injury, right? There's going to have to be a person that comes and fills that shoes, and I feel like that MJF is going to be the best person for that, because it's the summer of MJF now. We had the pipe bomb from Punk. We had the summer of Punk. Now we potentially have the summer of MJF. Even though I don't agree with how they started it off, okay, because they could have done it better. Like you said, your promotion does more of a family-friendly atmosphere, which I'm all for that, you know, as I'm growing up and understanding that. 10 years ago, I would have told you something different. I would have been like, I'm all for what's going on with AEW. But this type of behavior is not for national television. This is not something that we need to influence the next generation with. We need to save this for something else, like the movies or Netflix or something that, you know, you can selectively choose this type of behavior for, not for national television. It's big to get somebody over by being eccentric on national television, but you can do that by your tone of your voice and how you articulate your words. You don't have to cuss to get your point across.
No, and let me tell you a little, firsthand experience from this too. I started in April 2000. So I mean, I was a teenager during the Attitude Era and all that kind of stuff, and I was a huge fan of ECW. I was a huge fan of the Attitude Era, and we know they pushed the envelope with similar stuff to this. And I did like it at the time, but once I got in professional wrestling, when I broke in, there was about 20, 30 of us between the ages of 14 and 20 that kind of all broke in together. And after so many years, a lot of those guys fell off, and there was only a handful of us left. But about 6 or 7 years in, we looked around and we realized that there was no 18-year-old kids trying to get in wrestling anymore, or at least not to the same numbers that there were when we did it, right? And we couldn't put our finger on it. And one day it kind of dawned on me. When we were 18 and we were loving all this stuff, 6, 7 years, that's 11, 12 years old. And that's when parents started turning the dials off on professional wrestling because there was cussing, because there was drinking, because there was vulgarity, because there was nudity, all that kind of stuff. And we just didn't see the same level of wrestling fans come out. Every business is about creating a new fan. Most people do not wake up when they're 40 years old and go, hey, I'm going to be a wrestling fan today. You know what I mean? Unless they have kids that become wrestling fans. So that's why everything, in my opinion, needs to be geared mostly towards kids. I'm not going to say we have to do everything, Nickelodeon style. But what I'm saying is, it needs to be geared towards them, because I became a wrestling fan in the very beginning of my life, and here I am, 41 years old, I'm still a wrestling fan. If you create a wrestling fan when they're kids, more than likely you're going to create a wrestling fan for life.
You're absolutely right with that, and you bring a great point that I want to say real quick. I wasn't a wrestling fan until I was a little bit older in life. I want to say I was 11, 12. And you know what? There's a movie that actually inspired me to become a wrestling fan. And you wouldn't even think of probably which one that I'm talking about, but it was actually a Jim Carrey movie. It was Man on the Moon, because I'm a big Jim Carrey fan from when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You just always made me laugh in a world where there's so much negativity. I always was compelled towards funny movies, and Jim Carrey was a comedian. Now, this wasn't really more so a comedic film, but because I was a big fan of Jim Carrey, 11, 12 years old, going into preteen, I was into Jim Carrey movies. So I watched Man on the Moon, that movie, Jerry the King Lawler, that rivalry, seeing it all culminate, seeing them make Jerry Lawler look 20 years younger. It was pretty funny. And all of that, in the film, I started watching WWF behind the parental backs, because, like you said, it was frowned upon. There was more nudity. It was an Attitude Era at that point. Yeah. 1998, 1999. It was the beginning of the Attitude Era. Sable, all that stuff. All those things in TV they don't want you to see at 11, 12, preteen age, if you know what I'm saying. If you're picking up what I'm throwing out, if you're smelling what I'm cooking, that's what I'm talking about. But when it comes to that, that's basically the time frame that I got into. And if it wasn't for like your territorial roots in Tennessee and Jerry the King Lawler, and for what he did to professional wrestling, and for what he did, I may never have become a professional wrestling fan from being a Jim Carrey fan and seeing that movie.
And also, Jerry the King Lawler still wrestles, and he's well into his 70s, much like Ric Flair. I just tagged with Jerry Lawler back in September.
And I saw the strut too, by the way, not to cut you off, but I accidentally, I ran out of time. I meant to actually upload that and for us to talk about that at some point, but maybe at some point down the road. But yeah, that was really amazing for me to see that if he could pull it off, even though he hasn't been through as much as Ric Flair has done, damage to his body with all the drinking, I have good hopes for Flair too, I guess.
Yeah, Lawler was never a drinker or a drug guy or anything like that. So I mean, he's another anomaly though. Like, he just started wearing knee pads
because of his age and needing the support.
Because of his age, yeah. He did the fist drop off the second rope for years with no knee pads. I mean, that's crazy to all of us professional wrestlers. And here he is, he's wrestling in the 70s, and he just started having trouble enough with his knees to go, yeah, maybe I need to wear knee pads. You know, like, some of this stuff is just, it's stuff that you can't teach. It's stuff that you can't learn. It's something about that individual. Ric Flair's one of them, and Jerry Lawler's definitely one of them too.
Hey, before we take some comments from the fans, I do have one question for you.
Sure.
do you happen to have any of Jerry Lawler's artwork because of how famous of an artist he is? Do you happen to have any of that lying around behind you?
I do actually somewhere. I have a photo he did of me actually.
Really?
Yeah.
It's some point down the line. I mean, unless you got within arm's reach, but I mean, that's really cool that Jerry Lawler did an actual drawing of you.
Yeah, I got it right here.
That's awesome. That man is so talented. From all the things I've seen online, guys, let me actually put. That's awesome, man. Like that's fantastic. And he autographed and everything. Like the fact that you got to live out a dream as a fan, you got to do the strut with Jerry Lawler. You got some artwork of yourself drawn by a WWE Hall of Famer and Jerry Lawler. That's epic, man. You can't write that in history.
Well, I've got one actually even better than that. You know, you're talking about I did the Fargo strut with Jerry Lawler. I did the Fargo strut with Jackie Fargo. There's a video. You'd have to find it on my Facebook somewhere. But like, we did a show with Jackie Fargo back, you know, probably 9-10 years ago, and there's a video of me and Jackie Fargo doing the Fargo strut together. So the actual originator of the strut and me doing the strut. That's why I use the strut in my stuff, is because I'm the only one that's actually strutted with Fargo.
That's awesome. Like, I didn't know that before. Of all the research I did back before we did this episode, I didn't come across this. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Final round.
You know, with the final round, Ty, just talking about it, Game 2's outcome has set the tone for the NBA Finals. Warriors in 6. Are you in or are you out?
It looks like we already got our graphic already made when the Golden State Warriors win the championship. I'm in.
I'll go ahead and pop it back up for you.
That's right. There we go. There we have it. Yes, I believe the Warriors will win this series in 6 games. I said it before. I'm saying it again. I'm sticking to my chops here, Drew. I look at this Warriors team in Game 1. What they were able to do in that third quarter, they just pushed that lead out, and we all thought that they were going to win Game 1. Celtics had a historic comeback, and they won Game 1. That was one game, and the Game 2, the third quarter, it happened again. The Warriors were able to extend that lead and run away with it, but only in Game 2 they were able to close it. They were able to seal the deal, and I'm expecting them to continue on this path. And like I said earlier, it's not going to be easy because Boston's defense is number 1 in the league for a reason. They have a lot of athleticism. They have a lot of young talent there. They have a lot of depth. They have good, strong defensive wings, Drew. So I look at this series and I still have to take the Warriors in 6. I think the Celtics will probably win at home in Boston in Game 3 tomorrow evening, but I think the Warriors will probably handle business, and I think they're going to win this series.
Just like I was saying previously, I have to stick with what I said before. I'm still with the Celtics. I'm out.
Denied.
Celtics in 6, baby. I'll live by the sword. I die by the sword. I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with the Celtics. They got the size over the Warriors, even though the Warriors have championship experience. They're still missing KD. KD's missing them too, brother. So without the key cohesive unit, I don't think they're going to get done this year against this size. They're going to have to get some size during the offseason, a little bit more. Maybe if it's just depth that comes off the bench to where it just helps them out in certain spots. But they need a little bit more help. Okay, I'm going with the Celtics. Celtics in 6. We'll probably still eventually see a 7-game series because I don't think they're going to win it in 5. I don't think the Celtics are going to just only win Game 1. It's going to be at least a 6-game series, but Celtics in 6.
Let me throw this at you, Drew. Klay Thompson haven't quite looked like Klay Thompson that we all grew to love over the years in this series. It's only a matter of time. He's jacking up a lot of shots. Eventually, some of them will start to fall. It's only a matter of time before some of those shots start to fall. and Clay gets his confidence back, and Steph doesn't have to carry the team so much. Jordan Poole, he got off to a rocky start in game 1. He had a decent game in game 2. And Draymond Green, we see the energy that he brought in game 2. So Poole and Green, they may be back on track. Just wait till Klay Thompson gets going. You got something?
2 things. I got 2 things. Celtics only need to do 2 things, my man. They just need to limit the turnovers and to do better in the third quarter because they absolutely sucked in the third quarter in game 2. If they can do better in the third quarter and they can limit those turnovers to not have 18, they're going to win game 3. That's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I agree that will definitely help their chances. But at the same time, we saw what Horford did, we saw what Derek White did, and we saw what Marcus Smart, what they were able to do in game 1. They didn't quite do that in game 2. So if you're a Golden State, you can shut those guys down. Let Tatum beat you on his own. And Tatum is lethal. Like I said, he was able to beat you in 2 different ways in game 1 and game 2, even though the outcomes were different. But, Tatum can switch up his game, and Jaylen Brown's an athletic freak. He does his business on the defensive end, but he can get you buckets as well. He's so big and strong and tough, and, he's very versatile in his game. But I look at this matchup here. If the Warriors can just beat you in different ways, like I mentioned, if Klay gets going, just look out. I mean, Steph has been carrying the way for them, and if Klay gets going, that's just going to change the whole dynamic of the series.
And it's polar opposites from what was going on at the beginning of this playoffs. It was actually Klay and the rest of this team, Jordan Poole and everybody else in this team that was carrying this team throughout the beginning part. And now it's funny how it's transitioned now to the ones that were struggling at the beginning of the playoffs are now what's carrying this team through the game 2 victory and potentially the momentum from that going forward, which we'll see. I just have a big, strong hope for the Celtics now, the way that they won that series against the Heat. I said it then, and I'm going to still stick with it, and I'm going to live by the sword and die by the sword on this. The beast is going to come from the East in 2022. That's what's going to happen. It was either going to be the Heat or the Celtics, baby, and that's what I'm sticking with.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. Like I said, the Celtics, they're tough, man. They're here for a reason. But if they want to win this series, they got to get some contributions from your Marcus Smarts, your Al Horfords, your Derek White. Derek White, he's been solid throughout the entire postseason, honestly, but just going to get some. They're going to need some production from those guys. And a big thing here, Drew. I don't think we touched on this, but the health of Robert Williams. He recently had a knee procedure before the postseason started. They wasn't sure if he was going to be able to play. Now, fortunately, miraculously, he's been able to suit up and play and give them some big time minutes. But if he's not 100%, Kevon Looney, I almost pronounced his name wrong. Kevon Looney for the Warriors, he's been solid. He's been a very underrated player. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting going down the stretch.
It definitely will be. It's going to be a great game to watch tomorrow night. The cool thing about the finals is actually spread out a little bit. It keeps you the anticipation is there. It's a few days spread out, gives them a good time to rest a little bit too. A little bit off subject for those of you who are wrestling fans, not sure if you saw where Cody Rhodes had wrestled with that torn pec. There's been memes all over the place about it. Bruised up shoulder. You can't do that in basketball. You can't shoot. You can't have a torn pec and shoot. So the good thing about that, they get the time in between each game to rest, but you can't rest off a torn pec in 72 hours, get ready for game 3. So we'll see how that rocks with some of these guys who are a little bit banged up.